And oh my goodness, happy Monday. Sometimes I feel like it's Groundhog Day, but over the weekend, I definitely miss doing this show, even though I get to be a couch potato. But we have missed you all. Hello, every beautiful body out there. If you're not familiar by now, my name is Blair G. Hervey. I am the founder and CEO of The Corporate Strategist. And as always, I'm joined by my colorful co host, my bestie, soul friend of 20 plus years, and self proclaimed diversity geek, D'Angelo Crane. Say hi, D.
Well, hey, Bestie, or like I would like to call you, Bert to my Ernie. I'm excited to be here with you again today to bring a little love, light, and laughter to the Black Diva Collective stage. Now, I have to tell everyone that I'm a little nervous because today we're streaming to YouTube. And we also switched from your LinkedIn to, I mean, your Facebook to my LinkedIn. So I am checking. That's what you were before the show. You all, Blair was like, "You're not looking at the camera," but I'm checking to see if it really is happening. I don't see anything yet, but maybe someone could tell us if it's happening or not. But there you go, Blair.
We're showing to your Facebook, D'Angelo, not your
I
LinkedIn, your
know
Facebook.
the Facebook. I know it's what I said. I'm looking. I don't see anything going on yet, but maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm not using it correctly.
That's okay. Well, nonetheless, a big welcome to our guest, Sarah Ting, as well. We are so excited to have you, and you look gorgeous. You're definitely giving us a look today. So thank you for that.
You're very, very welcome.
Welcome, everyone, to the Black Diva Collective Live. Before we get into it, D'Angelo, you want to take us into our sunny segment? You are dressed for it.
Yes, I sure am. So every day here at the Black Diva Collective, we take a moment to ask everyone how they're feeling, and we like to call that the art of the check-in. And why do we call it that? Because during 2020, one of the things we ask leaders to do is to show empathy, show some vulnerability, and dig a little deeper into knowing your employees and what was going on in their lives. And the easiest way to do that is first by establishing just the art of the check-in and checking in with them to see what's going on in their lives. And so we're going to practice that here as we do every day on the Black Diva Collective Live. So, Sarah, how's your heart? How's your mind? How's your soul today?
Well, I'm doing fabulous because we just put the finishing touches to this poetry contest where the winning poems, including the Sun poem, are prominently displayed in the Franklin Park Zoo. And the winners, they got to have their class go on a field trip to the zoo. So all those kids got the day off because their classmate wrote the winning poem, and the winners got a free membership to the zoo. So I'm doing fabulous. And it took a year to plan this. And it all began with the Sun poem.
Oh my goodness, that's great. That's fantastic. And you have to tell us more about. I was listening to your TED Talk, so I'm all excited about to knowing a little bit today's section about the Sun poem. Blair, how's your mind? How's your heart? How's your soul feeling today? I must say this hair is looking pretty. You got a little curl right there. It's looking very cute. I like it.
Thank you. Oh, you noticed. Yes. And there's like inches and inches. So, I can talk about how great my edges are again. They're laid and slayed today. I'm feeling great. Aside from, yes, now I'm looking at your Facebook trying to figure out what's going on. But as always, I'm full of life. I'm full of energy. I spent the weekend resting, getting my hair braided, and applying for pitch competitions. So I'm feeling great. Happy Monday. How are you feeling today, D'Angelo? How's your head? How's your heart? How's your soul? How's your wardrobe?
All is well in my world. It was a good restful weekend, a good balanced weekend, and so those are always needed. And back to the grind this Monday, so it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, and I learned how to use technology this weekend. So if you see my Instagram, my LinkedIn, or my Facebook, I posted a new visual, and I'm excited because I learned how to use two new apps called Pixel Cut and I've already used the Canva, but I used it differently this time with the Pixel Cut. So I'm excited because I know how to I know how to make a little fancy, smancy, Instagram moments there.
Oh my gosh, I love it. He did a great job. You should have the picture ready, but we'll have
I
to show
know.
it tomorrow. Well,
Okay.
without further, excuse me.
No, that's okay.
Oh,
I just nothing. I was like, go for it.
I was like, you know what? It feels like a good little conversational double dutch. But let's get right into this thing. Again, welcome, Sarah, and thank you for this valuable conversation. If you're not familiar with Sarah, Sarah Ting is the president of her organization, and she's the founder of World Unity Incorporated. She's also a TEDx speaker and a diversity and inclusion trainer, and also an author. She's a first generation Chinese American and one of 5 children. And she's moved by inspiration and has a very deep faith in God. One of her favorite prayers is with God, all things are possible. Where there is no way, God makes a way. I love that. And her message for us today is that you can be empowered by the sun poem, and she can show you how to dare to be as great as the sun and shine on everyone. So we're really excited to hear your message, Sarah. Again, welcome and thank you for being here.
Well, it's an honor and a pleasure to be with you and D'Angelo. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you and to share what I've learned for my life so far. And as you know, every day is a learning experience, so we never stop growing. Some of us would like to think we did, but if we truly want to be true to life and to growth, every day has a learning experience, right?
Absolutely right. Well, I had the pleasure of sharing your bio and reading that information, but I would love for you to share with us, in a few words, and tell us how you actually got into this work, as well as what was that one pivotal moment that said, you know what, this is something that's really important for me to lead the charge on and be a thought leader in.
Sure. The inspiration for all of my work, Blair, and what has sustained me for the last 30 plus years is actually this simple poem called The Sun. I wrote it in a personal journal in 1978. It was never meant to be public. The poem came on a journey that I was on and trying to understand the meaning of God. And I had kind of like a revelation and a direct experience with the sun. As I was going on this journey, I was trying to find a church, a place of worship that I could learn about God, because I thought this is the obvious place to learn about God. Because, in life, there are three camps of people. There are those who believe in God, those who don't, and those who are not sure. I was the I'm not sure. And I was perfectly willing to learn about God. And I just thought the best way to do this is to find a place of worship. Unfortunately, every place I went to, no one spoke to me. No one said good morning. Not one single word was said to me. It was as if I was invisible. And I experienced what Mother Teresa called the worst disease any human being can experience, being unwanted. And as I'm taking the bus home, the sun rays broke through clouds because it was a gray New England day. And the rays came shining on my face. And I felt the warmth of the sun. And I heard this voice, a calm male voice, that said to me, Sarah, I don't just shine on you, I shine on everyone. And that is how the sun poem was born. Are you greater than the sun that shines on everyone? Black, brown, yellow, red, and white. The sun does not discriminate. So the pivotal moment that led me into DEI training, this poem was showcased in a 4-foot by 8-foot poster that I was commissioned to produce for the YWCA in Boston, because their first imperative, whoops, did we just black out? Oh, their first imperative is the elimination of racism. And a young lady who saw the poem for the first time, she told me she hated the poem. Good thing I stood still to hear the rest of the story, because I knew she wasn't being malicious. She just wanted to tell me what the poem did for her. Well, it opened up the wounds, brought back the memories of being discriminated in Boston as an Asian American woman. And she said, after seeing the poem over and over again, because she couldn't ignore it, 4-foot by 8-foot, she couldn't ignore it. She realized she had to learn how to let go of the past and forgive. She learned forgiveness. That was the pivotal moment that made me realize this poem had a powerful message for humanity. And so the vision came to build a permanent landmark showcasing this poem so that future generations would be impacted by it, because my mind also thought about the Middle East and how much forgiveness is needed there. So that was the pivotal moment, Blair, that led me into the work, 1987.
Well, I know everyone out there is just like, ooh, where is this poem? What is this poem? So I'm sure we'll get into it. I'm very inspired and very intrigued, Sarah. Thank you. D'Angelo? You're muted.
He doesn't realize he's muted.
Let's
Muted.
see. I was leaning in. I saw, yeah, I was so salivating over everything that you were saying there. Self-awareness gives you the capacity to learn from your mistakes as well as your successes. It enables you to keep growing. Lawrence Bossidy. Nearly everyone, about 95% of us, thinks of themselves as self-aware, when actually only 15% of people are from recent studies. So today we're talking about being truly self-aware, and what does that look like? And I seem to think of it as an ever-ending journey and search that we're all on. So Sarah, I like to get down to the basics of it all. What was the moment when you became self-aware, and what were the attributes that you contributed to your self-awareness? How did you know you had become fully self-aware, or you were on a journey of self-awareness?
And thank you for that question. First of all, I think self-awareness requires a lot of humility and courage, the willingness to face yourself. And so I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine at the time, and telling her that people have biases and prejudice. And she said to me, "Well, how do you know?" And when she asked me that question, I was thinking to myself, how do I know? And then the realization came to me. And I actually wrote a poem about it called Being Chinese American.
Mhm.
I realized the reason why I knew was because I had biases towards my own people. And I can remember exactly when it happened. So I wrote this poem called Being a Chinese American. It says, as I walk down the street, I see rows of white faces with round eyes. These eyes march by me, staring straight ahead. No acknowledgement of my humanness. Am I invisible? No response to my smile. Am I ugly? No response to my hello. Have I done something wrong? Oh no, I forgot. My eyes are slanted. Friends tell me you shouldn't assume that all people are looking at you with racist eyes. And how do you know they are discriminating you because you're Asian? I know because I've rejected Asians too.
Mhm.
And I remember the experience. I was in an elevator, and there was a gentleman in the left corner who was speaking with a very, very heavy Asian accent, just really heavy. And I could feel myself moving, wanting to distance myself from him, not being near him, because he had this heavy Asian accent. So that was the moment that I knew something was going on with me. And that's
You know,
how I wrote that poem.
Mhm.
that's very interesting. We all go through this journey of self-discovery, and we love Instagram, and I think I ran across something most recently that said something about, when you are looking at other people and you are upset at their ambition, or you are upset at how they carry themselves or what they wear. Oftentimes, it's because there's something in you that's broken, or there's some type of insecurity within you, and so that has to be fixed and explored first. When we're talking about self empowerment, I love your sentence in the poem that speaks about, or forces you to ask the question, are you greater than the sun that shines on everyone? I think what I struggle with in that sentence, that question is, you grow up in a world, like what you were saying, full of white supremacy, where white culture is centered, and where, for some reason, for lots of reasons, we're thought that we should act white, talk white, be white in order to be accepted or assimilate, until we find our own self and encourage ourselves to be great. And in that journey as well, I feel like there is some empowerment. I need to tell myself I am better than, I am greater than. How would you say, or what would you say to a person who's on this journey of self-awareness and self-empowerment to juggle, I am better than what I've seen, versus this humility that you're encouraging us to express as well?
Yeah. So I think it's not only humility, Blair and D'Angelo, that we have to be willing to do, but we also have to be willing to be vulnerable. So I just shared with you something that most people would not be willing to do, to share how they discover their own biases towards their own people. So you have to be willing to be humble, and you have to be willing to be vulnerable. And when you do those two things, you actually become a stronger human being. And so to answer your question, in order for us to be a better person and grow personally and professionally, we've got to be rooted in our humanity first. Think about it. We have 8 major identities. There's your race, your gender, your sexual orientation. Human being is an identity, right? Would you agree that's an identity? There's your political identity, there's your economic identity, and there's your physically able, disabled, and there's your religious or non-religion. Those are the 8 major identities. So which identity are we rooted in first? Everybody can think about that question and answer it for yourself. Which identity are you rooted in first? And here's the other question. Of all those identities that I just shared, which identity is inclusive of all of them? We are not all women. We're not all men. We're not all white. We're not all rich. There's one identity that includes all of us. That's the identity we need to be rooted in first.
The human being.
Yes.
Absolutely.
When you're rooted there, that's what gives us the capacity to value the diversity of humanity. What's happening, from my perspective, is some of us are getting rooted in the identity that we're defending. That's where we're getting rooted, because we're defending that identity.
Ooh, that's a deep love. I see it on the tip of your tongue. I mean, I can think of a million reasons why, but I mean, I'm with you, Sarah. At the core of it, I mean, we are human. Literally just sent an email this morning that said that. Yeah.
So here's the other thing I'll share with you.
Sure.
As we all know, there are many, many Black people in America who have achieved a level of success, whether it's an athlete, a singer, an author, a TV host like Oprah. They have achieved success. And when I hear these interviews with many of them, they always do talk about the adversities they had to overcome, where they came from, their roots. And inevitably, most of them, there's this one line that I hear: I'm a human being first. I hear that in these interviews. I am a human being. Because they talk about the adversities they had to overcome. You see what I'm saying? And then wanting to understand they are a human being, and rightly so. They are a human being. Their Blackness is a part of who they are. That's not all of it. That's a big part of who they are. But unfortunately, the human conditioning that we all go through is we judge people that trite saying by their cover, what we see, versus the content of who they are, their character. And I don't know why my screen just blacked out. Anyway.
Well, we are so many things. We're so much more than entertainers, and there's so many layers there, but I'm sure D'Angelo will get right into it as well.
No, this is a very interesting conversation. I love where we're going about defending who we are, right? And that's many times how when we get into that bias that we have. And you talked a little about that in your TED Talk, Uncover and Overcome All Unconscious Bias Within. You talked about facing biases without guilt, shame, and judgment, and stepping out of our comfort zone, right? And I always say getting uncomfortable. So talk a little bit about the role that self-awareness plays in mitigating bias and discrimination. When we get to that point, how might that help us to be better at that, to be a better ally, really?
Yeah. So thank you for that question, D'Angelo. When you have the self-awareness, first and foremost, we have to remember we're all human beings. And as a human being, we're going to make mistakes. We will. And as a human being, we're going to have different biases depending on the family you grow up in, the community, the education. and even the nation you grow up will dictate the kind of biases we're going to have. So the self-awareness is what empowers us to realize what it is we have to work on. So in other words, if I didn't realize that I had biases towards my own people, how could I ever be comfortable to do a diversity training? Let's just say if there's some Asians in the group. So the more I do the work on myself to become more self-aware, the more effective I can be as a DEI trainer, but also as a leader of my own organization. But if you don't want to lead an organization and you don't want to be a DEI trainer, that's perfectly fine. However, the question I would ask people is, well, how many of you want to stop growing personally and professionally? Raise your hand. You cannot grow personally and professionally if you don't practice self-awareness. It's going to limit your growth. It's going to limit it and your effectiveness.
You're right. I want us to be cognizant too of, it's not only defending a certain identity. I think it's about finding pride in community in that identity as well. So where does your message align with finding pride in me being a Black woman, or finding in community in other Black women? Where is the message of self-awareness there?
I totally agree with you, Blair. Absolutely. So when I say defend, it doesn't take away, you're 100% correct. We have to be proud of these other identities. So when I say defending, I mean that we should be proud of who we are, but not let that be the only piece of who we are that we want to promote to the world. In other words, so me as a human being, my organization, World DEI, I'm a woman. We're not promoting even women. And I'm Asian. We're not promoting. What we are doing is helping humanity, helping us all get rooted in our humanity. And yes, of course, I'm proud that I'm Chinese American. I'm absolutely proud of it. And what allows me to continue to do the work with a lot of pride, as you said, is I'm rooted in my humanity. I'm rooted in love. That's what guides me. There's a wonderful quote by Ella Fitzgerald. Remember the famous jazz singer? I love this quote by her. I put it in my book. She said, "Just don't stop doing what you really want to do, because where there's inspiration and love, you cannot go wrong." So for me, I am guided by inspiration and love for humanity. That's what guides me.
Yeah. Then it's beautiful. I mean, in that journey of self-awareness, you've developed your own set of core values as well. And in that becomes your North Star, that becomes your mission statement, that becomes, this brand in essence. And I'm sure that attracts other people who resonate with that message. So I think that's really important to share.
Yeah, I would say, Blair, the values to me, I would say they're universal values, the love of humanity and compassion. The values is, to me, compassion, patience, collaboration, cooperation, are universal values that when we tap into those values, that's what allows us to work together. Like in the opening of your program, when you asked, "So how are you doing, Sarah?" And I told you, "Well, I'm doing fabulous because we just finished this wonderful poetry contest." That was a collaboration.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I would agree. Collaboration is critically important. D'Angelo, come on in there, bud.
No. Sarah, I want to first acknowledge your vulnerability and honesty and sharing with us your own blind spots when it comes to your own community. Part of, as we were preparing for this, I was reading an article from Forbes about the self-awareness is key in leadership excellence. What should a leader be doing or showcasing to the team to foster this environment where we're all on a journey of self-awareness? So what's one or two things that you think leaders can exhibit to show that they're on their own self-awareness journey to get the best out of their employees?
Well, first of all, it does require someone in that leadership role. You do have to be humble. In order to show your vulnerability, you have to be willing to be humble. And what I think CEOs need to do is they have to develop a daily practice, some kind of daily practice, whether it's an affirmation, a prayer, but something that cultivates that mindset and that heart to want to be the best leader. And when you develop that daily practice, I think that's what empowers the person willing to be vulnerable. Let's just say they made a big mistake, like a really big mistake, and just say it. Bring the whole company together and tell everybody, I'm bringing everybody together because I want to tell you all I made a mistake. And here's a mistake. Now, I know this is not easy to do, and especially if it affects the bottom line, because that's a whole nother area. So there's different levels of willingness to be vulnerable. The question that I would put to any company is this: do they want a culture where people are so afraid to admit they made a mistake that they cover it up? And then what happens is that mistake, because it wasn't revealed, created a big problem for the company. So to me, I want to create a culture where people feel comfortable that they made a mistake and say it. I made this mistake. Because if you don't feel comfortable sharing it, what's going to happen is people are going to work on that based on that mistake. And then you're going down this path where that little mistake now becomes a big mistake. So did I answer your question, D'Angelo?
No, you did. You did. I love that. One of the things that was in the article was about daily practices that leaders can do. Some of it was around meditating, but those are some great takeaways. All right, Blair, I think you had something you want to chime in there.
No, what were the other daily practices? I just want to make sure that this is tangible, because I mean, for a lot of folks out there that are very logical, especially very logical leaders, and they're right along with you, Sarah. They're like, oh yes, this is a great opportunity for me to get my team together, for us to be much more self-aware and vulnerable. But where does this really make an impact in our day-to-day work? So I'd love to hear, D'Angelo, a couple more of those examples, and then Sarah, going back to your bottom line question, how the bottom line is affected.
I'll let Sarah go first.
Okay.
Well, so when you say something tangible, Blair, so tangible would be, it could be as simple as an affirmation, because it's about the mindset. It could be something as an affirmation, like, and I'm just making this up for the moment. I'm only human. I make mistakes. Just remind yourself, I'm human. I'm capable of making mistakes. That could be like one. Or an affirmation could be, in order for me to lead an effective company, I have to be willing to admit my own mistakes.
For the leader to do themselves. I got you.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, fantastic.
We're all talking here. I know, it's all good. The rest of the Forbes article also talked about many of the things Sarah talked about. It says be curious. So really asking questions and getting to know your employees, paying attention to them. So paying attention to things around you. And once again, really showing that level of empathy. We talked about the daily practices and the mindful workshops. All those things really help us as a team to rally around how do we center ourselves and really know what is our goals, what are our values as a team. And we think about getting to a point of self-awareness is really about determining who you are and how you want to show up and living in that, right? And when you're truly self-aware, from what Sarah's been sharing with us and what you share every day, is that you're really, when you are standing in who you are and value who you are, there's no need to put anyone else down or turn anyone else down or defend yourself against anyone, because you really are going to be sharing your light, love, and awareness and self-actualization with other people. So that's what I got out of the article and the information that Sarah shared with us today.
That was beautiful what you just said, D'Angelo. When you are self-aware, yes, you're secure within yourself. And the other point that you kind of touched on, D'Angelo, within each of us, there is a small voice that knows the right path for you and the right decisions to make. So I would also highly, highly recommend that everybody, you have to take some quiet time for yourself. You have to shut out the world, everything, and just be with yourself and hear this quiet voice that's inside of each of us. And that quiet voice can help you, especially if you're facing like a major decision you have to make. Oh, anything. But there is that quiet voice that is inside of each of us. What we have to do is shut out the world, turn off
Mhm.
your cell phone, everything, all the distractions, and just listen to that quiet voice that's inside of you that we all have. It's the divine voice that's inside of each of us.
Thank you, Sarah. And hey, if any leader out there needs an assessment or an exercise to do some self-awareness, it's Saboteurs. It's a great assessment where you have an opportunity to truly reflect. Something I learned at Salesforce, to have an opportunity to truly reflect on what barriers and what internal barriers get in the way of you having a good relationship with others, as well as get in the way of you having a good relationship with yourself. But thank you for that. D'Angelo, do we have a shout out for today?
Yeah, Blair, really quickly here. You know, you have a talk that you do, and we have a workshop we do at the Corporate Strategist called Lifting While You Climb. And someone who I've helped out along my journey, who I'm so excited about, is Dirk Carr. He just recently is a new DEI practitioner who just accepted a new role as senior diversity and inclusion professional at his organization, and coming from the business now into the DEI world. So excited about the work that he's doing. And once again, we think about how do you pick someone while you're climbing, or not pick someone up, but help someone along the journey. That's the work we continue to do. And Derek was one of my mentees or proteges along the way. So super excited for him, and shout out to him coming over to our world here. All right, back
I
to you,
love
Blair.
it. Congratulations to Derek. And thank you again, Sarah, for sharing your wisdom and the poem and all of your insights with us today. We greatly appreciate your presence. And we greatly appreciate the presence of every single person out there. Thank you for joining us at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every single weekday for your daily dose of D&B with D&B on the Black Diva Collective. Everyone have a great day and a great afternoon. Thank you so much. Bye now.